So hello guys, we'll continue from where we left off. In this video, I'll use the same projects, and I will also use the same NX session that we used for the last video. So I cleaned up, I removed all the unwanted objects, and then this is the same session where I created one sketch. So now we'll see what is an attribute and what is the use of this attribute, and what are the different ways of getting this information and then setting information. So attribute is nothing but as it suggests in name, it gives the properties of that object. For example, if you have a sketch and the sketch having lots of features in it, either this part itself can have its own attributes. What kind of part it is? It can be it can be belongs to a automotive part, for example, or it can belong to uh, a manufacturing of a different aerospace component. So the component itself have different information to it towards it. So what the attribute does it, we can set this information to the part. So for the future reference, for example, this part is created somewhere here, and here it already have some information. How to go to attribute is by right clicking on the any object. I right click here, and then if you go to properties, there will be one tab called attribute. Once you go here, you can see all the list of attributes that are available to that specific object. Now what we are seeing is all the attribute that belongs to the part, because we clicked on the part and then right clicked on the part and went to the properties, right? So in this other case, let's say I have a datum plane here, and this datum plane also have properties. I right click on the properties, I right click on the datum plane, and then clicked on properties. Once I click properties, now there is one more tab here called attributes. Here you can create an attribute to this. So attribute have different information. Let's say I'm going to create one attribute. Attribute can be also connected to the to a specific category. For example, what kind of object it is? It is a datum plane or datums. Let's say I'm going to create a new uh, category called datums, and I'm going to give a title. Let's say this datum plane is the origin datum plane. So origin data plane, I'm going to give a name as origin data plane, and origin data plane, and then here I can say, let's say I have multiple origin data planes. This is zeroth origin data plane or first origin data plane, and then I'm going to create one more data origin data plane. Based on the plane, I'm doing something. Let's think so. So what kind of object that going to be? It's going to be an integer. And what is the value? Let's say this is the first value, and if you click that tick mark over here, it says add new attribute. So I'll click over here, and then you will see a new attribute here. So here it says, oh, okay, might be give a wrong name. Here you can see the name as datums, and then there is a typo. I think I can here write it, rename it. Now I renamed it. So here, if you see that category of this attribute belongs to datums, and I created one attribute, and the name of this attribute is, or the title of this attribute is origin datum, and what is the value? 1. Then if I click OK, this value will be saved to this. If you can we created it on the template, you can go and revisit it. You can edit this value. Yeah. For example, if you want to change it to 2, you can change it. But what I want now is you also need to know this value can be locked. Either you can say I want this, I want the attribute to be locked. You can either, here if you see it says attribute is writable, which means you can modify the value. This value can be also stored in Team Center. There is one more software that I think you are aware of this. It's called Team Center. If you can save this value from Team Center, you can retrieve this value from Team Center. So these are the things. And one attribute can also have multiple value, like an array. If you click on here, it will allow you to set multiple value to for this item plane. I mean this attribute. but for now we will see only the basic things. So here if you see, or if we created one data plane attribute, and then let's say I click OK. Now you want to read this information, right? Or change the information, let's say. So here we'll go back to the same project. So if you see it, what we have here is attrib is a session, and then in this session we have different objects inside it. So here, if you want to change this attribute or read this attribute, where this attribute resides is first we need to know. This attribute reside in this data plane, right? So what is a data plane? It's a feature. So we need to collect all the features and then check whether this object is a data plane. So we already have this piece of code, but we commented it out for our in the tag creation of tag explanation of tag video. If you want to get this, it's in my channel. You can quickly check that. So I'll uncomment this where it says okay, it cannot able to find all this object because we commented this. First it says it cannot able to find the features. So features comes from the work part array, and then work part we commented it already. We'll uncomment it, and now it says it cannot able to find the feature tag because this feature tag code is also commented, and then the listing window is also commented. We'll uncomment this piece. So now what it does is it collects all the features, right? And then it goes and checks whether the feature is not internal. If it is not internal, then it collects a tag, and then it's printing into an object. This we don't need, right? Because what we need to do is here we need to check whether the object is a datum plane, correct? So how to find the type of this feature tree? If you don't know, let's say we don't know this, first we need to know what type of objects, because you have different objects here. One is a datum coordinate system, another is a datum plane, and another one is a sketch. So we don't know what kind of feature type it is. So first we need to find that. So to get this, we first, let's say you don't know what is the name of this type. So we will comment this, we will first print that information to it. So here it says if it is not internal, what we are going to get is feature type. So we'll see whether is there any method that says type. If I'm going to type here it says there is one more thing called get type, and this type returns me what? It returns me a string. So this is what exactly I want. There is one more thing called get type, but this returns me an object itself. It says system.type, right? So I don't want this. I need the type, the feature type here. So what does this return? This returns a string. This cannot be a method. Okay. So this is what it returns. It returns a string. But what we have here is a feature tag. So that is wrong. So we need to create a string. And what type of object it is? Right. So this is a feature type. I'm copying it and then I'm pasting it here. So now it loops through all the features, and then it returns what the feature type of it. We'll print the feature type in the listing window again. I'm pasting this value in the listing window. So now once this code executes, it says it prints all the feature types in the listing window. So I'll rebuild it, and it should be built. I'm copying this location, and then to run it, I'm pressing Ctrl U, and then pasting this location, and then run it directly. So once this application runs, it gives me few information. It says this thing what you see here, it is previously I already opened this. I'll close it and then re-enter it again. So now you will get a fresh listing window. So remember that previous values are gone. So it says there is one object, and there are different objects that you see. One is a datum coordinate system, and other one is datum plane, and other one is a sketch. And now what exactly we need is a datum plane, because inside this datum plane we created the sketch. or we created the origin datum space. So here first we need to find what type it is. So already we have this feature type, right? So here if you write a if condition, this will this will filter out only datum plane. Correct. We'll quickly rebuild it and then run it again. So this time it will only print datum plane instead of all the three. So this will help us to understand, okay, we already filtered out the unwanted features. So it says it came inside only for datum plane. Now we have the datum planes. We filtered successfully all the datum planes out of this feature tree. Now for this feature, there might be that we created manually. Yeah, we created an attribute manually. So we'll check for that thing. So if I say each feature dot, now what I want to get something and that is an attribute. So I'm typing attribute here. So all methods that or functions that belongs to attribute will get listed here. What we need to do here, there are multiple APIs available. So what we usually do is what we are creating is an user attribute. So we need to get the user attribute. So here if you see it is a user attribute. Now it says yes, there is a user attribute method. And if you go to here it says it needs what a title and what type of object it is and the index, right? So let's say I need this method and want to get the attribute. So to check this, what is the title? We can get this title from the object itself. If I click on here is the title. This is going to be my title. And then what does it need? It need what type of object it is. So during creation itself, we said we are going to create an attribute of type integer. So we are going to say my attribute type is integer. And what is the index? Since we don't know what this index means, so we'll go back to the documentation. And then if you click over here, how to go to the documentation is by double click on this function and then press F12, that goes to the documentation. And then here there would be one more plus. Here it gives a detailed information. What are the objects that you want to read? What is a minus? What is an index? What is an attribute type? And then it gives specific information about it. Now here it says set an array to -1 if you see the attribute is to be found and it is not an array. Did we create an array as attribute? No, we created a normal attribute, right? So the value to be -1. So we need to set the value to -1. I will quickly set the value to -1. So now when we run the code, it should get this attribute with the name, right? And then we what we exactly need, we want, let's say we want to print the value of it. The value here should be 1, right? So now here what does it returns? It returns an attribute information, right? So what can I get? I can take this as an attribute information. I can create an object called attribute information, or I can go back to the documentation. I'll remove this, go back to the documentation. What it is, it returns is an attribute information. I copy with this value and then I say attribute information, and then let's say attribute information and then equals. Now it doesn't know where this attribute information is coming from, so we need to use a static object. So once we finish this, now we have an attribute information. So what we need to do, we from this attribute information we need to get the value. And what is the value that we set? We can set any value, right? But our value is an integer value. So if I press if I press a period or a dot, and then here if you see are all the values that we need. It says okay, if we can create different types of attribute as I said before, right? So here you can see what kind of an attribute is it. Is there an expression is there in the attribute, or you want to get an integer value, or you want to get a real values or string value. It gives this a value, or you wanted to get the title. Somehow you found the attribute. Now you want to get the title. So in that case, you can check via the title. Now in our case, what we need to do is we need to get the integer value. So, so what does this integer value returns? It returns an int. So we need to create a int here, or either you can create the value to, let's say you create an int and say attribute value equals, since we already set it to 0, for now this purpose I'll set to some random value, right? And then I will set this value back to. So once this code executes, it comes to all features. It gets the data, it only filters the datum plane, and then after filtering the datum plane, it gets the origin datum, for example, and then it collects a value. But what we need to do is we need to show this value to the listing window. So we already have this code. We'll copy the value and then paste it. I will uncomment it. And then what does it give us? Let us give a proper name. Um, let's say origin datum value. Now once we run this code, it just prints a value that belongs to, no, not the feature type. It has to write the attribute value, right? So we will replace it the attribute value. So in this line, it collects the origin datum and then it's get the integer value and then paste it in the next line. And then it prints this value into the listing window. We'll quickly build this application and let us run. So now it says the value is 1. Now we'll set this value to, let's say, uh, 15, and then the value is set now. Now if you run the application again, it gives the value to 15. So now what we did is, in this video we learned how to get information. Let's say you want to get an attribute from an existing feature. The attribute is already available, so we are getting this attribute directly from this data. In the next video we'll see how to set a value into the into any object.